she should be very proud of that. And she sent me poems for that anthology we did, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, and they were just spectacular, and I was really impressed. So, also, she's a very nice person. So please welcome Stefene Russell.
It's nice to see so many people here. Like at 7, hey, Ken Brown. It's hard to follow you. It's hard to follow a musician too. I was going to say Matt was falling on 2 swords. He goes first, and he follows the guy with the guitar, which is very hard. But I have to follow you, you bastard. So it's true. Kate Curtis Lyle, it's tough. But I'm so happy to see all of you here because we didn't think anyone was going to show up, which I've been in a worse spot than that. One time I read with another poet and 2 musicians, and 2 people showed up. There were 4 of us and 2 of them. It was this very nice older hippie couple that sat there and smiled at us and made eye contact and was very uncomfortable. So I knew even if 3 people, 5 people, if we were outnumbered by the audience, it would be fine. And here you are. Look how full the room is. It's lovely. Thank you. And thank you to Brett and Ken and Matt. And thank you, Brett, for having me here. So I've got some old stuff and some new stuff. And I like this podium. It feels very
firm,
platonic or something. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad I got a laugh. That's kind of awesome. So this is, I used to work on this
Brock
thing.
Walker.
What? No, he laughed at me.
That's why I said.
And then I laughed at him.
No, you got a laugh from him.
I know. I'm impressed. I feel good. It can only be downhill from here, right? So I used to co-edit this lovely thing called 52nd City. We published Brett and probably some other people in this room, and it was gorgeous. Firecracker did the covers for us, and this was the first one we put out, and we kind of padded it with our own stuff. I was looking back through some issues today, and I was very relieved not to find too much of my stuff there because it meant people were sending us stuff, and it's always embarrassing to publish yourself. So, I think. But this was our work issue, and does anyone, who here lives in South City? Do you get that crazy ass, that South City Journal with the weird obituaries in it? Nobody reads that damn thing but me. Well, I don't live in South City anymore. I live in North City. I don't get newspapers there, so.
I think it's frozen on my front steps right now.
Yeah, that thing. It's always frozen or covered in dew, so it's like stuck together. But they have these awesome obituaries where they describe the whole person's life, like what clubs they belong to, and it's always people who are like 100 years old because no one is in clubs anymore. So, so this is called When the Honest Working World Has Passed Away, and it's based on these obituaries that I looked forward to reading these every week. That's what kind of a morbid son of a bitch I am. And now I don't get it, and I miss them. It's sick, but anyway.
We have 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes left. I know. So this is based on those obituaries. So now you have to read the South City Journal so you know where it came from. When the honest working world has passed away. Mr. Blacksleeve was a shoe cutter. Mrs. Pett was a musician and a church organist. Mr. Sextro was a press operator for the Universal Printing Co. He was a member of Local 505. Mrs. Husk was a stenographer. She loved animals. She was a life master of the American Contract Bridge League. Boots Malone was a truck driver. He was a member of the Bass Busters Fishing Club. He is survived by his parents and his brother Orville. Mrs. Starkey was a hairdresser. Mr. Slaughter was a metal polisher. Mrs. Starman was a seamstress. Mr. Orr was a lathe operator. He was a veteran of the U.S. Army. Mr. Kitten worked for the cornstarch division of Anheuser-Busch. Memorials may be made to the Center for Inoperable Visual Impairments. Mr. Sokolov was a switchman and a former Golden Gloves champion. Mr. Tansey was a grocer. Mr. Phipps was a Metropolitan St. Louis police officer. Mrs. Pearline Gruber Nee Gray was a clerk. She was a member of the Telephone Retirees Club and the Pioneer Telephone Family Campers. Mr. Pickles was a warehouse manager. Mrs. Buda was a knife sharpener. Mr. Parcel was self-employed. He was a member of the Carpenters Local. He is survived by his wife. Mrs. Abbott was a homemaker. Mrs. Dean was a homemaker. Mrs. Rosen was a homemaker. Mrs. Tussin was a homemaker. Mrs. Valentine was a homemaker. Mrs. Liedl was a key punch operator. Mr. Smallin was a bookkeeper. Mr. Sargent was a beekeeper. He was a ham radio operator. He was a lifelong member of the Knights of Columbus. Mr. Vincent was a factory worker. He was a member of the Last Man's Club. And our wonderful Carolyn Huth, who's now in Chicago, she did this lovely ghostly thing with somebody's old family photos. So, so that was that. And then, so thank you. Sporty. So I wrote something for Sporty too about golf, which my dad plays, but I hate, and I used to caddy for him, curse and verbally. So what the hell? I hate sports, so I had to write something for Sporty. Like, I'm like the least macho member of this meeting tonight, like so not macho. It's like being a long-stemmed rose with no thorns on it at a bodybuilding competition or something. I mean, I'm like the wussiest person here. So I thought, Sporty, okay, Sporty will compensate.
You have to drink more.
Huh?
You have to drink more.
Oh, I don't know if anyone wants that. So of course I've read about the clothes. I don't actually like the sports. So there's like this lovely golf lady. It's called Sporty Attire. The swerve of the driving iron, the ball that never goes anywhere. Dumb, dimply thing should stop hoping for a parallax. A new look at the sun, much less the cemetery next door. The only thing about golf the lady likes, the knitted pom-pom, socks and leather sleeves slipped over the woods and the irons and the wedges. Oh, right, and Long Island iced teas, all sparkling with mint. This is the lady wearing a pale green golf shirt to match the flavor of the mint, all cool like the swing of the jigger. Nothing goes anywhere. No ninja movies in pom-pom socks, or should I say socks SOX, 6 to a pack, with white tennis shoes, water trap. And in the powder room, a vending machine that spits out glass ampules for a quarter. White lilac, consent, Shalimar, Nombre Noir, each has a colored tip. Powder blue, hunter's green, iridescent pink, like a match that never had any fire in it, but containing perfume to cover up that hint of body heat and sunny hair. God damn it, here's the lady in a brown golf shirt, stuck at the mahogany bar with an awful bore. This never goes anywhere. And so the afternoon disappears in beer and beer and beer and beer. Now here's the lady in a powder blue shirt, under a sky glutted with 70 degrees, partly cloudy, under a red striped canopy with a white Russian and a sweet little purse containing red lipstick and tip money, and those red nails wrapped around the nimble gold handle of a putter. Well, if she filed them sharper, she'd be opening her mail with them and putting out the eyes of bad guys in diamond masks, fresh from a holdup. Now here's the lady with fists in a shirt the color of lightning, designed to electrocute any mote of dirt that alights on it, plus booty socks with atomic pom-poms. She'll show these creatures not to eye her 9-iron or figure she was made for nothing but cutting slack. Oh, that's right, she says, brassy raised over her head. I'll hollow this out and fill it full of swag and smoke it. Flammable, flammable me. So that's what I mean. There was the wine. I drank a glass of wine and now I'm all chatty.
I was kidding.
But it's true.
We're out of Schlivovitz.
Huh?
We're out of Schlivovitz.
Oh, damn. I like Schlivovitz. Even from Shop and Save, the bad stuff.
It's good.
It is good. Okay. So, maybe you guys have seen, this is a new one, by the way. There's a guy down on the riverfront, I don't know if you've seen him. He looks like an astronaut. He's like this Christian guy with a flag, and he's all in white. And he'll pray for you. He stands there, like, he freezes and stands without moving until someone goes up and asks him to, well, he'll pray with you, but more people are kind of asking him, like, oh, can I take a picture of you with my cell phone? And he'll move if you ask him that to. He's a very nice guy. And I went up and talked to him, and I said, well, what is your name? Like, who are you? And he told me it was Brad, servant of the Lord. Which is sweet. He's a sweet guy. I actually like him. So every Sunday you could go tomorrow, and he'll be standing there under the legs of the arch. Like, he poses like this. And he just stands there with this big flag. He said, "I'm standing for the Lord." So I kind of liked him. So I wrote this poem for him, and it doesn't have a title yet because I can't quite. So I guess it's untitled. But I put him in outer space. He's not under the arch. He seems more at home out in outer space. His silvery visor, bottomless stars, the universe for a face, pretty much weightless, his fat white hand waving from space, Jesus' stubborn moonbeam. Drifting far, a ball bearing for a head, a chrome lodestar in his chest, sending out its filaments. A flag patch, a maroon suit, a cross on the forehead, stitched in red, but all else solar white, looking for heaven, looking like a doctor in the outer space hospital. He's planting his flag, planting his feet, shaking his boots, knocking green lunar dust into the river, testing the springs in his boots, getting higher, getting higher. So I just have a couple more. I know Ken thinks that the computer is like the devil's box. I like it. I don't know.
Knock yourself out. You know, nobody does it better.
Okay. So I belong to this like loose literary thing called, we call it Otis Nebula. I didn't think of the name, and I guess our mascot is sort of like, my friend Richard in Salt Lake concocted this whole thing, and Otis, from what I can tell, is sort of like this creature who's kind of like William Hurt at the end of Altered States. Does anyone see that movie?
Yeah.
This is what Otis is, I guess. So it's sort of this stupid little game that we play where you, and Otis is a really kind of slovenly, loose literary form where you pick 12 words and you post them, and then you take the 12 words and you have to use one in each line, and then you take 12 words out of yours and post it for the next person. So these are not sonnets, these are Otises, and they're short. The Eskimos' chrysanthemums blooming under ice below the known waters and the unknown waters, clown face and tiger face, green blossoms of the bipolar North Pole. The Eskimo described the icy sun and flowers to himself, to his own person. Orange feathers tufting the hood of a penguin's eye, the exploding maroons of the atmosphere. This is sugar, and this is sugar, the brain of a white sun, busting up glaciers to make the fissures visible. What redeems, connecting small things, dots and blossoms. And if you all want to play along, you can go find Otis Nebula on Facebook. I mean, it's kind of like playing scales, but it's nice to just, you know, have these little flash paper things. They're kind of fun. Dead leaves, discarded tags for crisis. Cheap tricks played by the wind, beating up puddles and slips on clotheslines. Skybound, little book of the trash tree. Catalpa leaves describing love. The mimosa's ditzy pink halos. Mercy to the tree of heaven, you curse it, it thinks its name is fuck. Electric pulse, some tires, weeds cracking asphalt. The human art of busting things up, discarding everything. A plot of wild carrot, cheap white crowns, starched doilies, pigweed and witchgrass, never undone. Commonest of common things. No cryptid finds a forever home. So it also makes it a little more elliptical. I don't know what time, actually I could be done, I don't know. I lose time up here because I get very nervous. Yeah. Okay. I'll do a St. Louis one. This doesn't have a title to it. It's a pattern tonight. I'm feeling untitled. In this city, the crickets sound like zippers going up and down, and the old men turn their lives over and over with a fishing pole or a canoe paddle like they're looking at dead fish they can't identify. Metropolis is only an hour away. Our home planet always gets us, always pokes us in the eye, exploding green, yellow, white. Fireworks for this city and its heat, a blanket sewn from birdsong, and drops of water that dream of dousing evil. Brave, like St. George's sweat, looking away and becoming a permanent cloud. And I'm making a wish on a catfish whisker that's twirling and twirling to the bottom of the river. So that's it. Thank you, Brett.
Very capable and charming imagination. That's what I always remember. So we have some food. I think the booze is about done. I think there's one more beer and a taste. And I think a taste.
About half a bottle of Chardonnay back there.
No, it's just a taste. I think
okay.
is left, but a lot of food and books. Is it wrong of me to be very impressed that Brett used to be a really big pitcher with a fastball? And
Right,
Brett.
I felt it.
You felt it?
Still got the heat.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
We're gonna
Joe
play
and I played
wiffle
catch
ball
last year.
someday. We'll play wiffle ball.
We do it in an alley on Laclede's Landing at 4 a.m.
Quite possibly.
And I can throw like 90 miles an hour.
With
Oh.
snow.
Well, not tonight.
So I met Brett probably 4 or 5 years ago at Chef Schlafly Bottle Works, where he used to work when we'd have Observable there, and with Aaron Bells and that crowd. Brett has got a very wry sense of humor. I've never seen him very excited. He's very calm. He writes fabulous poems. Some of them are real long and tell a great story and really get you in. The other night he gave a reading at the Archive and just totally killed. Everybody loved it. So he's really, I saw him read for the first time too, which was what, 3 or 4 years ago? At Duff's. And he did well. So, and that couldn't have been more than 3 years ago. He's really risen. He's got his little chapbook out now and he's going places. So, please welcome Brett Underwood.
Thank you, very nice. Got my timer there. I want to make sure I go over. I want to thank Matthew on the set.
Yay.
Joe Soulier, who did the Get Born things, who kind of got me pumping, and Stefene, of course. Tom Crumb's down here. There was a time when I started writing basketball articles when I was like 16 or something. So I've always been writing. My dad was a writer, but it took me a while to get out of the country boy form and stuff. And now I've completely lost control. Just recently got published in Bad Chew, which is a great publication down on Cherokee that's published. I don't know where they print this, but it's Bad Chew. It's under st.louis.projects.org, I believe. So I'm going to read a few short ones, and then I'm going to read some from my first chapbook, which you can buy back there for $5 if you want. And it looks like I took this picture today, but it was Christmas. Belge thing. Faith. She saw a dog puppet licking the branch outside her window. She had 17 girly vodka drinks and a bottle of wine, painted naked in acrylic all night long. Later that afternoon, the dog puppet dissolved into pain. This one, and by the way, the chapbook's called Sunlit Insult, which is an anagram, of course, on itself. I'm going to read a few short ones from that. Yeah, I know. The excuses he made. I will make the same. 'Cause you the leper. Take off that face. I wrote this on a bar napkin one time and I handed it to a customer who was a friend of mine. He handed it back and I had it and typed it up. A fine how do you do? He had too much chartreuse. Why don't you pull a sumac branch out of your innuendo, sit on your own face, and I'll fuck your god in the heart with a pear and pepper chutney gun spasm. Ken likes this one too. I wrote this, there was supposed to be some sort of benefit for dog care or something down at Mad Art years ago. I think it happened, but they didn't use this for whatever reason. It's called Bitch. Your malodorous heel has not the appeal of the dish you'll offer tonight. When we finish this walk on asphalt and rock, I'll hold back the strong urge to bite. You're a 9 o'clock shadow by the time you get home, but to spring me from out of your cage. Still, I'll act like your bitch and comfort your itch for rough licks and love without rage.
You're getting old school on us, Brett. I like
I don't think Matthew mentioned, I think he mentioned the compilation that he did, that he spearheaded, called Flood Stage. It's on Walrus Publishing. They published one of these, which I consider one of my more poetic pieces. Not that I write poetry, but it's about work, where I'm not at right now, and where I'm just suffering from last night. I work in a building that was built in 1903 or something. Sometimes I work in a grandiose castle, standing on clouds of epiphanies, the rush of the hungry and the damned washed away. I stop and look out the aged windows to the world, wonder what it's like to look in at the lights, the calmly dining public, them free from the streets, locked away from danger, hunger, and the mad rush for goods. Out there, snow falls silently on barren branches that never bear fruit, but only sticks of leaves void of nourishment, only serving to break up the asphalt beds of the commuting damned. A vagrant few pass through alleys beyond the blockaded forts of the captains of industry, and I am safe to observe in the warmth of perusal under pillars and beams of long since slaughtered cedars. I imagine that I am seated near one of those small saplings out there in a simple wooden chair, sipping cheap bourbon or other distilled and warming spirits. The wind and cold no challenge as I look in and see myself with scorn, standing behind my altar of refined leisure. Each sip melts the hatred, until another order for urgency makes itself known in the form of shrieking and harried voices, both human and electronic, to the clacking of credit cards on the bar. My feet turn to glass as the clouds on which I was wandering shoot needles of sleet into my mind. The calm faces turn to those of ghouls with gnashing teeth and hungry, blood-sucking souls. The chupacabra have come. I'm not sweating the small stuff. I'm bleeding minutia from my eyes. But it's time to make do until I can wonder why such precious still moments are few. Or moments like these, when I can get them down out of a fuzzed attic space. Just now I've returned from a quick few drags on the back porch during a warm break from winter. The birds are chirping stupidly as a church bell rings, but a generator is growling at the end of an alley from a building being rehabbed in the name of real estate, renovation, commerce, and the good of the city. I know I'm lucky to have such easy disturbances like yipping schnauzers, clomping neighbors on wooden steps, and the banging and clanging of carpentry free from Jesus. But I can't help to feel their encroachment as threatening, while a taxi's horn blares for the fat lady to waddle down for her ride to somewhere else, and the clock catches my eye. Soon I'll be returning to the trenches to fight off those fears of aging, to loosen myself from the nooses of debt, to free myself for more easy moments as the future yawns uncertainly, stretching its jaws for its next meal, languid and waiting for its soon-to-come easy gruel of we, the restless, on a Saturday night, easing ourselves down into the belly of the beast, a mad rush for more of the good, dirty, funnish hell.